Okay, so my friends, today we are going to cover a concept called quality management. We will learn the basic fundamentals of quality management, and then we will also understand what are the quality standards available for translation business. We will also understand whether it is a costly affair, whether it is a less costly affair, and what are the impacts, etc. So in first part, let's understand why we use quality standard, number one, and what it is. See, the fundamentals are, when we are talking about any standard, any, I'm saying, we have Indian standards, ISI mark. I hope you are aware. Similarly, we have DIN standards. DIN is called German standard. Similarly, there is European standard. It is called EN standards, European Union standard, EU marking we call. Similarly, we have American standards, we have Canadian standards, and we have Japanese standards. They are called JIS. We also have Chinese standard. In a way, these are standards generally started being used for automobile sector. There are some good number of people even in manufacturing where you might be knowing a person called Max Weber. He was the person who started talking about terminology standard long back. Similarly, there are a variety of people who have developed a standard, and most of the time these standards are not legally binding on anyone unless or until both party agree upon. For example, I cannot be forced to use any standard, and if I don't follow, suppose, Indian standard ISI, a government of India cannot come and force me to do that. Rather, I can follow American standard, or I can follow Chinese standard, or I follow no standard at all. But in order to give assurance to people, people follow standards, number one, and the standards are followed to meet the expectations of, and expectations, is based on what? Any expectation is based on a reference point. So suppose I wanted to order, let's say a switch, and if I order a switch in India, and people in India make switch as per what is being used in US, then what will happen? It will be get installed, but the moment I put it on, it will be off. So similarly, these pins, computer wire that we use, the front part where which goes, these plug we call, if that is totally different than what we use in India, than in Europe, and then in US. Similarly, in India we use kilograms. In USA they use pounds, gallons, etc. What are all these? These are all standard, and many times, because of not having detailed understanding of these standards, we suffer. People suffer, clients suffer, the manufacturers suffer. Same thing applies even in service sector. Tourism sector has certain standard. This called IATA standard. Airlines also have their association, and they have developed their own standards to follow certain basic procedures, we say. Hotel industry also has some standard, and in all these standards, different countries have developed their own standards in absence of international one. So later on, this ISO came into picture, and ISO in reality is part of United Nations. It is being funded by them. In translation also, there is an organization called Infoterm to promote terminology standards, international standards. It is funded by European Union as well as United Nations. I'm aware of a variety of these standards because personally I have interacted with this president of American standard, Chinese standards, European Union also, because being a president of Indian Translators Association and our association being part of International Federation of Translators, we have access to approximate 110 associations of the world. And I was lucky to be elected as one of the board members of this international, association of translators called FIT. When you get time, go to website of FIT. It's a very useful website. I was their board member for 2008, 2011. Got elected in Shanghai as one of the youngest member at that time, and that has given me lots of access to variety of people across the globe. I mean, all leaders, especially in translation industry, I know them personally because I have been working with. But while working, I learned about these standard and European Union standard people. They came to India in 2009 and presented their EN 15038 in our conference, and later on they tried to promote it also. They are the people called Terminet, Austria. They are based in Austria. But why I'm telling you all these things is that slowly these standards have evolved, and they have evolved for better. Earlier, these standards were specific for a particular country. For example, the first one was established by Germany, and that too by Automotive Association of Engineers. They developed in 1998. I will come to that. And then later on, there was another standard that was developed by Europe, then US, and then again European Union in 2008. In 2009, Canadian standards came into picture. China also worked, and then they were working on, and finally in 2015 ISO came. ISO is something which is universal, but all these have some similarity, and all these standards are recommendations. They are not legally binding. That is the peculiar thing of a standard. However, there are certain standards, which have created their mark on people for being very, very, I will say, effective and very, very stringent, strong, jisko hum bolte hain, demands of quality. And the more we standardize things, the more it becomes easy for us to control the problem. And there comes the project management. So where we use this while executing any project, we plug in the quality standards there. Why we plug in these quality standards? Because it creates a ready reference point. We don't have to, train everybody. We just have to fine tune everybody with certain manuals of those standards, including ISO or whatever standards that the company follows. And based on that standard, the communication is done to everybody. So if there is anything wrong, and if a project manager has misinterpreted the standard and someone has corrected it and done the work, the problem of that particular company can be solved, because he's not following the project manager, but he's following the standard. And any deviation to any standard can be possible only under certain control, and for that a very, very controlled environment is required. Many times supervisors cannot sanction or allow deviation. For him, he has to go to board and present his case and find excuse, and then put that into record, and then later on correct that particular deviation. Otherwise, if you keep on deviating, that means you are deviating from the reference point. And deviation generally in quality standards are not allowed. Hardly 0.5 or 1%, maximum little bit of deviation is allowed, that to under certain strong conditions, extreme conditions. For example, because of heat, something may not happen. Because of similarly health condition, you cannot take deviation in name of when there is somebody's health is at risk. That cannot be possible. If somebody's life is in danger, you cannot take a chance there. So those are the points where no deviations are allowed. But let's, for time, for a little bit of quality in material, some sample out of 100, if 2 of these material are not good, it is considered okay. Let's say you have ordered 100 pieces of shoes, and out of those 100 pieces, one pair is not good, or because there is something wrong there, you can take it accepted. A person has supplied you, let's say, 100 pairs of shoes, and 1 pair is wrong. There, if you start rejecting the lot, then there is a problem. So if a supplier knows what standard has to be followed, he will religiously follow that system, that reference point. And similarly, the client will follow the same reference point and expect the supplier to supply the same. No if, no but. Neither client will be right, nor supplier will be right. Who will be right? The reference point, which is the Bible for any production unit in which this particular standard has been applied. So this is the basic of quality standard. So how we deploy this quality standard inside translation. Now let's come to that. But before I come to that point, I want to understand, to tell you a few things. And that most important aspect is, look at this graph which I am just trying to show you. Let me first share it. Look at this graph. Then you will be able to tell me, what I am trying to tell you. Look at this graph. Can you see that? Let's make it more bigger.
Make it a little bit, but the entire page not visible.
Oh, now is it okay?
Yes.
See, in this particular graph, you will note DIN standard. It was established in 2345. 2345, it is 1998. DIN standard it is called. Okay. Then there is, Austrian standard, which developed in 2000. Then we have Chinese standard, which came into picture in 2004. Then we have ASTM standard, which came into picture in 2006. Then we have European standard, which came into picture in 2006, but later on developed in slowly and became more popular by 2007. Then Canada was not, lacking behind. And then 2008, Canadian standard came in. What was the next? It is ISO 17010, which came into picture in 2015, right? So if you look into this particular graph, none of these are telling you that this is legally binding. You can declare that I follow this standard and you're on, right? You can just declare that I am using this standard. That means even if you declare, you become legally binding. There is a legal binding between two parties. If there is any dispute, they can say that, this person has agreed in our terms and conditions that he will follow this standard, but he has deviated, right? And any standard, most of them I am talking, not one, all these standards, if you see, they are not talking about the text. They are talking about the procedure. And few of them do not apply, none of them apply to interpretation. It is only specific to translation. Chinese standard does not apply to individual translators, but rest of standards apply to individuals as well. All of them apply to company, except for Chinese. It applies to individuals as well. Except for European Union standards or Canadian EU standards or ISO, rest all you don't need any certification. But if you wanted you to declare your company ISO certified, EN 1038 certified, Canadian standard certified, you need to have certification done through these bodies. That every country has its own body, and once you are certified by them, you can declare that you are compliant, certified by these for example, our company Modlingua is an ISO certified company, but we are not ISO certified for 17010. We are ISO certified 2008, ISO 9001 2015. In 2009, for 3-4 years, we were certified even for European Union standard. We deployed that standard in our system, and we could legally declare that we are compliant. Most of them are voluntary ones, and audits required, regular audit required, not for all, but for European Union, Canadian one, and ISO. So what is done in audit? In audit, authorized auditor comes and checks whether you are following each and every step for your translation or your work or hiring, firing, everything, human resource, health checkup, security, confidentiality, office environment, all these parameters are there, in the compliance. So if we follow these parameters, we become compliant. But if we do not follow parameters, then there is a problem, right? So how we handle that? This kind of a situation when you are not following parameters, you are rejected. Your certification is rejected. None of them, except for there is one standard that is called SAE standard, SAE, Society for Automotive Engineering. These people are the one who have introduced control points for look at this. Can you see this? This is called Society of Automotive Engineer. They are the one who introduced quality control in the text, not the process I'm saying. And this was developed in 1996, and later on it became more popular in 1997, because major companies like Ford Motors, General Motors, etc., started using this as a reference point for what? For controlling translation of their manual. These companies, automobile companies, have been very, very smart in producing quality goods. So when they are producing quality goods, they would like their manual also to be the par with. So therefore they have introduced what? The measures to control the quality, and this very basic term, wrong term, syntactic errors, omission, word structure agreement, misspelling, punctuation error, and miscellaneous error. That could mean addition of error text. Many times we add some text while doing translation. Many times we omit. So both of them are errors. So this and rest all have introduced only process. Process is what? That you will hire good translator. There is a 5 years of experience required. Native translators will be there. Once the translation is done, a more senior person will check the translation, right? How do you will hire that editor, who will be checking it? So all these are the parts of these quality standards that I have just mentioned, right? And what is happening there now, so what is happening now with these quality standards that I was just talking to you about? These quality standards are giving us procedure to be followed. So the first procedure is talking about hiring. Second procedure is talking about entering into contract with your. Third is entering into contract with your client. Fourth is keeping your records. Fifth is bringing quality control by editor. So these are all processes that can be followed by anybody. But what about controlling other aspects in translation? Have you ever thought of? There is another set of companies called Localization Association, and that's it. It was called LISA, LIS. So this LISA standards introduced matrix. So this is called LISA matrix. So what they were doing, they have defined how to find out errors in any translation. So for example, if they have found comma missing at 10 points, then there will be one negative mark given for that. If somebody has done omissions, one additional deduction. Somebody has done critical errors. For example, if you are talking about 5 kilograms of butter of let's say 5 liters of petrol for aerospace for aeroplane, and in that 5 liter of petrol you are saying 50 liters, then do you feel that this is going to make a big blunder and disaster for everybody? So Lisa, such kind of critical errors, if you have produced in any of your translation, Lisa tells that your translation is a bad translation. But rest all cannot say anything, because they are not talking about text, they are talking about procedure. So there are two sets of translation standards. One is only about procedure, and another is only about content. Lisa is no more now into existence, but as per my knowledge, it was called Localization Industry Standard. So you can Google, you will find Lisa matrix. If you Google, you will be able to find that. But none of these have talked about errors of the text. But now there is another quality control point, which I want to add for you, which these standards will not tell, and that is non-linguistic aspect of those. I have given you, if you have seen that, if you recall, I have shown you these SAE standards, SAE standard, in which I have given you these points, that talks about omission, syntactic errors, critical errors, other errors, etc. If you just for your knowledge, wrong term, syntactic error, omission, word structure, misspelling, punctuation errors, miscellaneous errors. These are all text error, linguistic errors we call it. But what about non-linguistic errors? Have you ever thought of? The problem here is with the translators is, in practicality I'm talking about. Forget about all these standards. If you don't apply them, it's okay. But if you have the basic understanding, you should be able to place yourself well. But when we are doing translation for a company, commercial translation, technical legal translation, and now that there are memory tools coming into, machine tools are deployed, IT is deployed for consistency in translation, terminology is there for consistency in translation. Apart from that, what else can be there? They are called non-linguistic points. And they can be segments. Nowadays we do translation not of the sentence but of the segments, because they are strings of what? Commands for what? Logic, codes of computers. For example, if you are doing translation of app, app will not give you MS Word document. App people will give you Excel sheet, and in that one sentence will be broken into 5 parts, and you have to do translation of that, and that translation must be correct. How you do that? You have segments. One sentence, big sentence, is divided into 5, and that all these sentences will have some signs, tags. Some will have this positive plus sign, some will have greater than, lower than, higher than, somebody will have some markers there. And if you miss any of these markers, the person who will be doing the implementation of these coding will have a tough time, and he will curse you every time, because you have not done your non-linguistic work well. And most of the time you are not paid for doing this non-linguistic work, because it is not counted as a word, right? But it takes a lot of your time. So one is segment level pay. What we do get, we may forget the translation. We can produce incomplete translation there. We can insert some corrupt characters. We call corrupt characters. Corrupt characters are those characters which are not needed in the code, right? And we can also do inconsistency of word count or sentences. Suppose we miss, out of 10 sentences, we in series we miss 1. What will happen? The whole series will create a problem for the code, because even a single word can create a big problem. Similarly, if there is inconsistency between source and target text, what will happen? Think from the these developers' point of view. Similarly, if you miss the punctuations, if you miss the space, it can every string has certain space allocated, characters allocated. You cannot go beyond that. But when you are doing translation, let's say of a Hindi word, any word, and let's say I say जाता हूँ, मैं जाता हूँ has how many characters? मैं जा 4 characters, right? And if suppose I translate it into English, how many characters? I am going, only 3 words, right? But 3 words, and let's say characters are many. I am going, GOING, 5, 8 characters. The words and character now has a big difference. So the space allocated in the translated text, if it is not matching the source, the translation may be of no use, or it will be incomplete, because the developer will cut 3 words, 3 letters from there, because it is not coming into there. So these kind of problems, we face when we are doing translation for IT. Similarly, quotation mark is there. In English, quotation mark is one side. In Spanish, there are 2 quotation marks from left and right, Similarly, how you handle text of translation from, let's say, from English to Arabic. Arabic is read from, from right to left, right? So many times we have double dots. Many times we have single dots, bracket, numbers, values, gallons and kilogram. Can you imagine? Liters and gallons, kilograms and pound, measurement unit. Similarly, and project glossaries, Suppose somebody has supplied you a glossary and is telling you to follow that, but you find a better glossary in you and you start using that. There are tags, there are terms which are not to be translated. How to put markers there so that you don't translate those terms. Not every term is translated. Remember, many times you put that term the way it is, because if you try to translate it, it will create a big problem for developers. So all these, non-linguistic aspect, if we have understanding of all these points, your life becomes easy. Mismatch of expectations, is controlled, because when people hire you as a translator, they expect you to do miracle without understanding that you are not a technical person, and they give you a technical document of this kind, and that too it has too many of codes to be followed, what will happen if you don't know? Can you imagine? You will run into bigger disaster. Therefore, it is always suggested to ask for the document so that you visualize it. Otherwise, most of the people, they will tell you, oh, simple document hai, karna hai, kar dijiye, 500 वर्ड्स होंगे, बट उस 500 वर्ड में 5000 उसने टैग इंसर्ट कर रखा है. What will happen to you? Can you imagine? And you have quoted for 500 words, expecting that you will be able to complete it in 1 hour, but that 500 words of translation can take you 5 hours. Therefore, I keep on insisting, asking for document to visualize it and see in totality what you can do. So this is how, my friend, have linguistic aspect, we have non-linguistic aspect in quality management in translation. When we are talking about translation, we have terminology management also that comes into picture, where I have talked about glossary and all. I will not go into terminology management in detail, but just you remember that nowadays you have to standardize your terminology before you enter into your translation project. And it gives you, in fact, one opportunity to interact with your client, involve them in your project, make them accountable, take approval of your terminology, so that later on they don't come, and complain that, आपने तो ये गड़बड़ कर. If they say that, you say, हमने तो आपको terminology भेजा था, आपने उसको approve किया है, we have just followed that. But still, if you have standardized the term and for some reason one term has been wrongly approved, you can just give a replace command and all your errors are controlled in one command. So that is the beauty of following standard. If you do errors, it can be corrected in one go because everybody has followed the same error. So just replace command कर दीजिए, बात खत्म. But if everybody is not following and everybody is putting his or her words there, then it will be a difficult task to control. So there comes again the beauty of following the standard. The thing that applies in translation or words, same thing applies in manufacturing unit. If people are cutting something at certain standards and that deviation has been done by everybody, there will be error of similar kind in all products. So what will happen? Product will be recalled and a frame will be prepared and that deviated thing will be put in and it will be corrected in one go. But if we are not following standards and that deviation, somebody has taken 5-degree deviation, somebody has taken 10-degree deviation, somebody has taken 15-degree deviation, somebody has taken 1-degree deviation, then it will be difficult to cut. Similarly, in composition, if somebody has done composition of 50% to and 40% and 10%, and someone has done 50-40, someone has done 25 and 50. If that standardized deviation has not been followed, it will be difficult. So if you do errors and if that error is standardized, the control is easy. So, and all these things are done in a slow process. It takes time, it takes time to mature, it takes time to learn to implement betterment. And this is what is called, we call it, in quality control terms, PDCA, plan, do, control, and act, and improve. So we keep on doing it, keep on improving it, and this is a continuous process. Same applies in languages, same applies in words, sentences, same applies in linguistic aspects and non-linguistic. So that's all for the day today, my friend. If you have any questions and anything you want to say, please welcome. I will be happy to answer.
Hello, sir. I want to know about ISO. Can you please tell me detail about ISO?
Yes, see, this ISO is a quality standard developed by all countries, and ISO regulates, right? And mostly, this ISO has quality control processes for manufacturing units for a variety of, things, including automobiles, plants, products, but they're all process oriented, and there are authorized ISO auditors as well as auditing there are very, very known ones, like TUV, etc. They are very known ones. They are very costly. But if you wanted to implement ISO in your system, the first thing is to define which ISO you want to go for. So if there are options available, you want to go for ISO 9001, 2015, it is for process. But if you want to go for ISO for translation companies, there is another, ISO that I have told you, 17010, which is specifically for translation companies. So you can do that. But 9001 is for all companies.
Okay.
So depending upon what you want to do, take their manual, understand their requirement, prepare your documents, number one, implement them there in your system, and then call the auditor. The auditor will come, will give, if they will audit it. If there is something wrong, they will point out, they will tell you, give you time to correct it. Once you have done the correction, they will again re-audit it and you will be certified and you will be given a certificate. And that certificate is given for 2 years. Again, the surveillance will take, again, they will come, they will see if everything is fine. Again, they will renew it for additional 1 year or 2 year or 3. Meanwhile, international agencies, they keep on improving their processes and keep on adding new ISO thing. So let's say over a period of 5 years, there will be something new. So forget the old one, come to the new one. So this is a continuous thing going on. But even if you follow one of these, they help you a lot. Lots of companies from Europe or from Canada or from USA, they ask you whether your company is an ISO certified, because if you are ISO certified, ISO 9001 certified, they consider that you follow a standard. That means you are serious about quality. This shows your seriousness, nothing else. In terms of translation business, I'm saying the same thing could apply to content writing, soft skill, designing, etc. The idea is that if you are able to show that you are aware of quality control, the pains, the importance, and you have been putting efforts, etc., to do good work. Well, if once you have been able to demonstrate through your words or through your writing or through your action, they get convinced, and they prefer to, if there are two people, they will prefer to go with one who has the certification and one who does not. And at that point of time, 10%, 20%, the cost does not matter. If you are giving good quality work and asking 10% extra or 20% extra, they will be happy to.
Okay.
So that's the beauty and the importance of any certificate.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Sir, one more question. If you can tell me, please, that how can I get the membership of Indian Translator Association? Is it possible for me?
If you are a translator, certainly. But if you are not a translator, then not. For example,
Yes.
if you can demonstrate that you have a translation certification, if you can demonstrate that you have been a translator, and if you have experience, and then you can give them experience certificate. We need at least a person to be a graduate in a language with at least 2 years of experience under supervision, and that you demonstrate, you are given a membership. But if you say that you are a lawyer and you want to become a translator, it's not possible. Your profession is a legal profession.
But sir, for last 15 years, I'm providing services of translation to various firms and individuals. So on the basis of that, can I apply for the membership?
You can apply करने में कोई हर्ज नहीं है. Apply कीजिए, देखते हैं.
Okay, thank
because
you.
there is a board, that sits, and there is a very strong control. Out of, let's say, on a yearly basis, at least 50 people apply for membership, and hardly 5 of them are given.
Okay, sir.
So it's very strong control there.
Okay.
The reason is it's a small association. Nobody wants to bother, take botheration. Suppose if we start giving membership to everybody, what will happen?
Yes.
Lots of complaints will start coming, and who will cater to these complaints? There is no, this is a voluntary thing. There is no fee, nothing there, and unnecessary ka botheration. Why will office bearers will be bothered for this? Problem koi aur kare aur bhoge koi aur.
Yes, sir.
So it's better to control in the beginning itself. कि ऐसा कोई complaint ही ना आए. एक आधा आएगा तो देखा जाएगा.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions you have, my friends? No questions? Perfect then. I hope you will be able to understand it more better when I will put more questions, to you in our assignment. So we will have 3 questions this time. One to be on project management, and third will be on quality control. I hope I will be able to give it to you by tomorrow or by Monday, right? And then we will move on to our last part of the course, and that is entrepreneurship and integration of some IT things. Okay, then see you. Bye-bye.